All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Stephanie Walker. I'm going to start this webinar now and hope you all see a blue screen with the title of the webinar, Collaborative Research 2020-21, What's New, and Application Writing Tips. I'll introduce myself by audio initially, and then at the end of the presentation, show myself in person with my co-presenters so that we can have a conversation and answer your questions. So welcome. Thank you for attending the webinar. My name, once more, is Stephanie Walker. I am Senior Program Officer at the National Endowment for the Humanities, or NEH. I've been in the Division of Research Programs for about 11 years. My own academic background is in art history, a PhD from NYU. And I look forward to telling you about the Collaborative Research Program today. I'm joined by several colleagues of mine, Judy Adkins and Lydia Medici from the Division of Research Programs, and Peter Scott from our NEH Office of Grant Management. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves later on. But I want to start out by saying, please remember that NEH program staff are not just bureaucrats, but people like you, and we will lend a sympathetic ear to your questions and concerns about NEH programs. So I look forward to telling you about collaborative research, and I plan to speak for about 30 or 40 minutes, and then the rest of our time will be available for questions. And I'd like to ask you to please type your questions into the GoToWebinar interface at any time, but please don't use the chat. Please use the questions area for that. And after my presentation, I'll answer the questions. I'll read them out loud and answer them one by one, or ask one of my colleagues to jump in and help with answering. We'll try to get to as many of them as we can within our time. I also want to let you know right from the beginning, this webinar will be recorded and archived after today, and an updated link to the GoToWebinar will be posted on our Collaborative Research Program page on the NEH website. And finally, as soon as possible, the webinar with captions will be added to NEH's YouTube channel. So you'll always be able to go back and listen to it again, or to those parts that you would like to hear once more. Since 1997, NEH has funded more than 540 projects in the Collaborative Research Program, Grants Program, and you can look up all of these funded projects on our website at www.neh.gov. In the Grants section, you can click on Search All Past Awards button, and search by keyword, by name of the project director, institution, date range, and or by grant program. With other words, you can, there are lots of ways to search our funded projects database. And this is, I would say, an excellent way to get a first impression of whether your project would be a good fit for an NEH Collaborative Research grant. If you search by keyword and see what kinds of similar projects we may have funded in your area. The NEH does its grant work through 6 divisions, each focused on a different kind of work or a different kind of audience. The Division of Research Programs supports the work of individual scholars and those working in teams to advance humanities knowledge. So our Division of Research offers 11 different programs split into 2 families. Some of the programs are designed for, as I said, individual scholars, like the perhaps well-known fellowships, which obviously support the work of one person. These grants or projects tend to be shorter and focused, and then others, like collaborative research, are institutional grants for groups of people doing bigger projects. And they tend to be longer projects and grants, and might last over 1 or even several 3-year grant cycles. Here is kind of a snapshot for the collaborative research program. So it's really for teams of scholars, 2 or more, working on a larger long-term enterprise, such as planning, convening workshops and conferences, preparing multi-author books, and building scholarly projects. Grants for these projects last between 1 and 3 years and can be renewed.
Call from NSSVA.
Collaborative research grants are offered in 4 funding categories: planning new international collaboration, conference, manuscript preparation, and scholarly digital projects. And the 2 little pictures on this grant show you, on this slide, show you 2 examples of funded projects. The Evolution of Moral Progress, a biocultural theory, edited by Alan Buchanan and Russell Powell, published by Oxford University Press in 2018. This edited volume was supported by a 2016 collaborative research grant to Duke University. And Revolutions in the History of Early Modern Philosophy and Science was a conference grant of $49,000 that resulted obviously in the conference, and a website, as well as a forthcoming edited volume with Cambridge University Press. And that was an award made in 2017. So collaborative research encourages projects that propose diverse approaches to topics, that incorporate multiple points of view, and explore new avenues of inquiry in the humanities. International collaborations are encouraged, as are projects that include partnerships with researchers from the natural and social sciences, but especially those latter ones, all of them, but especially those latter ones, must remain firmly rooted in the humanities and employ humanistic methods. I'll get into more detail about what's on this slide as we go along. So who can apply? The applicant and also the awardee, obviously, of collaborative research grants must be a registered tax-exempt organization or institution of higher learning, or one of the entities listed here on this slide. The project director of these applications is typically the lead scholar on a project. Her or his nationality in this case is irrelevant because the US institution is the applicant. There can be co-project directors but one institution will be the lead institution, and the co-director can submit a separate budget in the same application. In grant speak, that's called a subaward. So that goes to the 2 or more US institutions can collaborate. Institutional grants in collaborative research can include requests to support non-US based collaborators, but as the grant guidelines explain, there should be a balance in the number of people and funds requested. So for example, not just one American among 5 wonderful other foreign colleagues, and not just 20% of the budget going to the American institution and the rest to non-US based collaborators. Finally, just because I've been asked recently about this once more, in earlier years, unaffiliated individuals had been able to apply, but since last year, eligibility for this program has been restricted to institutions and organizations as listed here. I'll just leave it at that. So what do we fund with collaborative research grants? Well, typically, we support these grants support the work that most scholars do. We try to the grant will buy out time for meeting, researching, writing to produce books or other materials that will have an impact on the scholarship in a project director's field or interdisciplinarily. All these projects must be based on original research and have some kind of interpretive approach, and they need to make an argument and contribute to scholarly discussion. This work can result in a variety of different kinds of projects, and it also depends on what category of collaborative research grant you apply to. But I've put up a few typical ones on the right. So peer-reviewed articles, co- and multi-authored volumes, special issues of a journal, or scholarly digital projects. And here is a rather long list of what we do not fund. Please also refer to the grant guidelines or the notice of funding opportunity to get the full list of funding restrictions. So let me just walk you through this slide briefly. On the left side, these first 4 bullet points are to restrict you from applying with a project that would be covered by a grant program in one of the other divisions of NEH. If the primary goal is to create new collections or digitize existing collections, that would be a better fit with our preservation and access division. Projects that mainly seek the development of testing, and testing of an innovative method in the digital humanities, those are projects better suited for our Office of Digital Humanities. And projects that are addressed to the public, to the general public, or for producing exhibitions and films, those would find a better home in our Division of Research Programs. The creation of textbooks and educational materials, that would fit better in our Division of Education Programs. There are a few other things that these grants, these collaborative research grants, do not fund. such as professional development or training, and subventions to publishers. You also cannot use the money from one grant application to prepare for another NEH grant application. We fund a lot of the costs for a conference, but not receptions. And we do not fund the purchase of equipment, including computers and peripherals. Finally, on the right is a set of restrictions that are sort of standard language that is included in all of our NEH grant guidelines. I think that it speaks for itself. I'll point out that NEH discourages applications that focus on biographies of living persons, and want to tell you once more to refer to the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, the grant guidelines, for the full list of funding restrictions. So what's new this year? This is not a full list of every adjustment we've made to the program, but these are sort of the major ones and the ones we think would interest our potential applicants the most. I will go through them, all of them, in greater detail. So program staff is resuming reviewing drafts. If you've applied to collaborative research or looked at collaborative research before, you might know that we used to read drafts, then we stopped doing that, and now, but we've decided it's better for you and for us if we do read drafts. So we'll take this up again, but you must use the template available under application materials on our website to submit a draft. And I want to remind you that the deadline for submitting drafts is October 15, so a full 2 weeks from today. And let me say a few more words about the template. It's more like a snapshot of your project. Download the Word document from the applications materials section on our website, and then write into the boxes of this chart or paste in the text for the individual sections. You can just cover over, you know, where it says title and then descriptive title of the project. You can X all that out and just put your title in there. And with the grant category, remember, you can only apply to one category at a time. So just choose the one that fits your project. And please pay attention to the word limits in some of these sections of the draft. We staff will comment on the fit of your project to a particular category and can highlight any other issues that we would see with your potential application. Please remember, we can only read one draft per application, and you should email it to collaborative@neh.gov with collaborative research draft in the subject line of the message. In your email, you can certainly also pose additional specific questions if you wish. With that, I mean questions that go beyond what the template captures. And what you see here on your screen, as you can imagine, is just part of the template. But like I said, at the program research page, that's where you can look this up and download the Word document with the template. I'd also like to add that if you're looking for budget advice in particular, I would recommend using the online resources on our website under Managing a Grant, or contacting the NEH Office of Grant Management directly at grantmanagement@neh.gov. So let me talk a little bit about the 4 categories that you can apply for in collaborative research. Last year, there were 2 categories. Now there are 4. A truly new one is this first one, Planning International Collaboration. Let me see something here. Yeah, there was something missing from the slide. So this category is intended for new early stage projects involving collaborators from the US and 1 or more foreign countries. Collaborations must involve at least 2 scholars, meaning at least 1 US person and 1 non-US person, but can include more while maintaining an equitable balance between US-based and non-US-based participants. Planning international collaboration supports initial meetings to brainstorm, plan, and establish new scholarly collaborations. Examples of funded activities include, but are not limited to, research time to correspond and exchange ideas through video conferencing, joint travel for collaborators to a relevant site, archive, library, or collection to investigate a project's feasibility, convening up to 2 exploratory workshops or working group meetings for collaborators, and completing a written research and future publication plan. So the primary results out of these small, short grants include, for example, a written plan for future collaborative research activities and possibly a publication or digital scholarly project, perhaps live streamed or recorded video of the workshops, live or web posted papers, podcasts, blogs, and discussion boards. And as you see at the top of the slide, Planning International Collaboration Awards go up to $25,000 and for a period of 6 to 12 months, so up to 1 year. The conference category supports a single scholarly conference or symposium or seminar that is open to members of an intellectual community that is broader than just the invited attendees. So with this, we mean to distinguish it from, let's say, workshops or working group meetings that could be held under the planning category. The aim is also to gather participants in person to sharpen an already established collaborative research topic and to plan subsequent print publications or scholarly digital projects. I want to say right away here that, of course, under pandemic conditions, in-person conferences would not be feasible, but we're hoping that by the time you might get a conference award, from NEH. So if you apply this December, you know, your award period would start in October 2021 at the earliest. We're hoping that in-person meetings will be feasible again by that time. And if not, we will work with grantees to figure out an alternative, either postpone a planned conference or other alternative to holding it. So, and NEH expects conferences to be widely advertised and include a variety of scholars representing diverse points of view. Typical funding requests are, for example, compensation for the organizing scholars, travel per diem, accommodation and honoraria for conference participants, presenters, and costs related to the rental of a venue or AV services. As a reminder, attendance for NEH-supported conferences must be free of charge. Primary products for conference awards include, but are not limited to, live streamed or recorded video of the conference, live or web posted papers, the preparation of conference papers for subsequent edited volumes or peer-reviewed articles, podcast blogs, and discussion boards. Now, what's new here is that we are offering a second year of funding for conference proposals, but that second year may be used exclusively for preparing the conference papers for publication. So if you are, quote unquote, just hosting a conference, you can apply for, up to 1 year of funding, up to a maximum of $50,000. If you want to sort of add on a second year to prepare the papers of the conference for publication, you can do so and request up to another $50,000 so that the maximum award for 2 years is $100,000. Or put differently, requests cannot exceed $50,000 per year. The third category is called manuscript preparation. This corresponds most closely with what we used to call simply publication. This grant category supports the completion of collaborative manuscripts in preparation for print publications. So examples of such publications include, but are not limited to, co- or multi-authored monographs and edited volumes, a series of peer-reviewed articles, or perhaps a themed issue of a peer-reviewed journal. And typical funding requests include, for example, salary replacement for research and writing, time, so with other words, time for the scholars to conduct research and writing, joint travel for collaborators to relative sites and collections to conduct research, and compensation for any needed consultants. Submission to a publisher is expected by the end of the grant, but you do not need a contract or an agreement with a publisher is not required at the application deadline. These grants, as you can see from the slide, run from 1 to 3 years for a maximum award of $250,000, and no more than $100,000 per year can be requested. I also want to say This funding category does not support in-person convenings of collaborators, workshops, or conferences. For that, you should look at what the other categories that are available, planning or conference. The fourth category that is new and highlighted is scholarly digital projects. This category supports the preparation of born digital publications. So in contrast to manuscript preparation, which would be for print volume or printed product at the end, scholarly digital projects could encompass a scholarly digital publication, but also digital resources and tools. All of these projects must be conceived and executed to address one or more significant research questions in the humanities and serve an intellectual community beyond the collaborator group alone. So these grants are not just for creating a website that's useful to you and your 5 co-collaborators. You have to make a case for your scholarly digital project to be of interest and of value to a larger community. These proposals may involve one or more lead scholars collaborating with digital humanities specialists, librarians, and archivists to prepare a digital publication or other project using pre-existing platforms, programs, and other technological infrastructure. So unlike projects that are solicited by our Office of Digital Humanities, where there's a real premium on innovation and experimentation with new digital technologies. Here in collaborative research, we expect you don't need to reinvent the wheel or invent something new. You can just use solid existing digital platforms. For example, Scalar for a digital publication, or Omeka for digital exhibition, or something like that. For many people, we have found humanities scholars really need to rely on the technological expertise of others at either their own institution or another institution to help with the DH or technological aspect of their publication, their projects. So it's this kind of collaboration that we would typically imagine here with these projects, is one or more humanities scholars and DH or digital humanities experts. For this category, you must also supply a long-term sustainability for the publication or project you are envisioning and discuss options for peer review. Typical funding requests include, for example, salary replacement to conduct research, write, and build a digital project. Again, also joint travel for collaborators to a relevant site, archive, library, or collection, and compensation for consultants. Like manuscript preparation, this funding category does not support in-person convenings of collaborators, workshops, or conferences. And please keep in mind that there are several other NEH programs and other divisions that support digital projects. And I'd like to refer you to the related funding opportunities section in the grant guidelines or notice of funding opportunity. Read that to be sure you are applying to the program that is the best fit for your digital project. And like I said, scholarly digital project awards are up to $250,000 for up to 3 years, and you may not request more than $100,000 per year. I see that it says 75 up on my slide, but I believe the correct number is 100,000 per year. What else is new? Just a few more notes. The formerly separate statement of significance and impact is now incorporated into the application narrative, which is now expanded from 10 to 12 pages. The work plan has to be submitted as a separate attachment. And you must use the research and related budget form to present your budget and attach a budget justification. Please read the full notice of funding opportunity for all the details on that. As you plan your application and proposal, please become familiar with the timeline of your application from submission to notification and plan ahead. The federal grant process is quite long, about 9 months for collaborative research applications. So if you submit your application by December 2, 2020, the peer review panels will meet in March and April 2021 after staff has sorted the applications into review panels and recruited panelists, and they have had time to read the applications. And then NEH's National Council on the Humanities, which meets 3 times a year, will review the staff's funding recommendations in July. And shortly afterwards, the chairman of the endowment makes the final funding decisions. And we are usually able to send out notifications to applicants by late July or early August. And the earliest start date of your project is October 1, 2021. So keep this cycle in mind as you plan and propose your project. Just a few more tips to wrap this up. So where to start? First of all, while the Notice of Funding Opportunity, or NOFO, is long, 36 pages, you should really read all of those 36 pages and also read the frequently asked question documents to get as clear as possible a picture of whether your project will fit or how to formulate your project and application. Right from the beginning, I would say, partner with a research development specialist or grant administrator at your institution to work together on different parts of the application. Then, following along with the sections of the NOFO, or Notice of Funding Opportunity, I would advise you to first look at and study A1, Purpose, in the program description section of the NOFO, and decide which application category is the best match for your project. Compare your ideas for your project with D6 funding restrictions to make sure you are not applying for activities or costs that are not allowed in this program. I showed you, most of those were listed in the earlier slide I showed you. You should also consider Section H, Other Information, for related funding opportunities to decide whether parts of your project might find better success in other NEH programs. And I would advise you to pay particular attention to C3, other eligibility information, to help select your project team. Next, I would focus on the instructions in D21I, project narrative, for advice on how to craft a compelling presentation of your project's significance and content. The 12-page narrative is really the core piece of your application. And while composing this application narrative, keep the list under E1 review criteria close at hand to make sure your application responds to each of the evaluation criteria in the appropriate parts of the narrative. Submit a draft, as I talked about. It's optional, but I would recommend submitting a draft before or by October 15th, and D4 has the information about that. And finally, your institutional grant administrator, or IGA, is the person who is likely responsible for filling out the budget and ensuring federal compliance and actually submitting the proposal on behalf of your institution. And they will be looking more closely at these other sections listed here on this slide: research and related budget, application components, unique entity identifier and system for award management, and federal award administration information. So like I said earlier, for these matters, it's really important to partner with one of your with someone in your grants institutional sponsored research office or grants office right from the beginning. So thank you for listening. I know this was a huge amount of information. I hope you have typed lots of questions in the question box. And in spite of all the information, I hope this overview has given you some sense about where to start and what the program is about, and pointers about the application. As I mentioned before, a recording of the webinar and the presentation images will be made available on our website. And I'd like to now start answering questions. And let me see if I can open that window, and also I'm going to share my camera and invite my colleagues to join me here as well. So while I'm looking for the questions here, Judy and Lydia, could you introduce yourselves? And I'm hoping that Peter Scott can join us as well. There he is. Great.
Hi, I'll go first. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Judy Adkins. I'm a program officer in the Division of Research with Stephanie, and I work on the Collaborative Research Program along with Stephanie and Lydia and other members of the division. I've been at NEH a little over a year, and I'm a U.S. historian by training. And I'd be happy to answer questions, and I look forward to reading drafts from some of you in a couple of weeks.
I'm Lydia Medici. I'm program analyst for this program, and I'm probably one of the first people who answers your questions, and some of you have already emailed me. And with Judy and Stephanie, I'll also be reading drafts.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Peter Scott. I'm a grant management specialist in the NEH Office of Grant Management, and I've been the grant management specialist for the Collaborative Research program in the past. Now and in the future, it's going to be another one of my colleagues will be the grant management specialist for this. His name is Al Nasser Fontenot. We just call him Nas, and he couldn't make it today, but I'm substituting for him. But I or any of my colleagues in grant management will be glad to try to help answer the questions. I'm going to continue on the thing, but I think I'm going to turn off my camera for just now.
Thank you, Peter. I'm having trouble opening the questions window for some reason. Can any of my colleagues see this better than I can?
Stephanie, I looked it up and it said that you, as the organizer, are the only one who can open the options. It's in the options at the top of your toolbox.
Attendees can ask questions. That's checked, so I think that should be possible.
Right. I don't know how you can open it though, because I don't have the access.
Right. I used to be able to just make this bigger and see what questions are in there, but I can't right now.
We do have the option of saving it as a file, and I suppose we could always answer them later, but
maybe unlike I said before, people should try the chat. I do see what's here in the chat window. This is so odd. Okay. Now I was able to open this. So 3 times 75, probably what the questioner means. 75K is 225. Is the cap 250,000 or 225? Are funds available to pay for image rights for art history publications? Oh, that's probably a separate question. So as I said in the presentation, I think the $75,000 figure in my slide was a typo. It's the maximum you can apply for 1 year is $100,000, and for the total award cannot exceed $250,000, and that's over a period of 3 years, right? So you could apply for 75 and 75 and $100,000, if I got my math right. Are funds available to pay for image rights? Yes, I think that's we've included those. Isn't that right, Lydia?
Yes, you can pay for images.
Uh-oh, somebody says the bottom of the page was not visible. I hope I hope at least in the recorded video, the entire slide will be seen. I know the presentation crops the slides somewhat. Can applicants be from the same institution? Yes. It could be you and one colleague from the same institution, or you and colleagues from a different institution, as long as it's 2 or more. Next question I see here is, can funds be used for translation as part of a larger project? For example, I guess this question continues. For example, a digital project. So here, this is a problematic question because what we're trying to do with the collaborative research program and the various categories is to force applicants to think of a large multifaceted project as possibly going to different NEH programs at different times. So you can try and make the case for translation as part of a larger project, but it would probably increase your chances of success if you could apply to our scholarly editions and translation program for that part of your project and for a scholarly digital project in collaborative research to then produce the digital project. Next question is, can I apply as a project director or co-project director for 2 NEH funding opportunities at the same time? This is, for example, scholarly translations and editions and translations. In the past, we have not allowed the same project director and co-project director to apply for collaborative research and for scholarly editions and translations because these projects are fundamentally different. It doesn't seem to make sense that you would apply for the same project to both opportunities. However, if you have 2 completely different projects that fit either one or the other of these grant programs, you can apply to both of them with 2 separate applications and 2 separate projects. Let me ask Lydia here again too. I'm not sure if you were successful in both programs, I'm not sure we could give you an award in both of them. Is that right, Lydia? Maybe Peter can speak up too.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we absolutely cannot, but in the past we felt that since these are such large-scale projects and involve so much effort on the part of the team that we really didn't think one person could possibly take on more than one such project in any given year.
Peter, if your audio is on, is there a condition from the side of grant management about this question?
I would agree with Lydia that the question would be whether the project director would be able to devote an adequate amount of time to both projects. So that would we'd have to look at the budget and the work plan and see. So I think that's the main thing. I think they would have to show that the amount of time they're proposing to devote to each of those is reasonable, and that would be something that has to be looked at closely.
So I think what we can say is it's technically possible, but it's probably not advisable, right?
And in the review process, we would actually see the fact that somebody was applying for more than one project, and reviewers would probably wonder about that.
Right. Next question, can non-US co-project directors submit sub-awards as long as their portion doesn't exceed 50%? So there are sort of several issues with that question. So if you are an American citizen but not based in the US, you can certainly be part of a collaborative research grant or a participant, a collaborator, but you can't be the project director. You can be called, I believe, co-project director, but NEH as a US federal agency will not commit or give funds to non-US institutions. So you wouldn't be paid through a subaward. There are other places in the budget, and it's explained in the budget instructions where non-US people can be funded. Is that correct, Peter, Lydia, Judy?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Can projects include comparative case studies involving both historical/archival research and current research, in parentheses, interviews, or should we focus on, I guess, only historical/archival research? Oral histories are another possibility. So we see quite a few projects that combine sort of a different set of methodologies or sources, if you want, and it's really up to you to explain how the research design of your project and why you need to do certain things in a certain way. It's not exclusive to one approach or another.
Stephanie?
Yeah, go ahead.
So we do have a fieldwork program whose deadline is actually today. So for people who are doing ethnographic research, there is a program for that right now. And that would probably be best suited for that kind of work.
That's a good point. So I would say if you know, conducting oral history interviews is a big part of your project, you might want to consider applying to one of these field research grants first, and then to an NEH Collaborative Research grant. But if it's, let's say, a more minor part of your collaborative research project, then you could include it. Can the publications include annotated translations? Sure, but again, it's sort of a weighting, I would say. If a lot of what your project, your overall and publication focused project, if a lot of that involves translation work and critical translations with annotations and so forth, then it sounds like your project is better suited for an editions and scholarly translations grant, right? Because you're absolutely encouraged to publish there as well. Can I repeat the email? I think the email should be visible on the slide that you see now. I'm not quite sure which email is referred to here.
It's the collaborative.
Oh, and it is up on the screen, right?
Yes, it's next to my name.
Perfect. Can you say more about what qualifies as an advanced project for the manuscript preparation category? Well, I would put it this way, since I said that we expect a submission to a publisher by the end of a 3-year grant. Think of it in that way and think about whether your project is that advanced or not. Can you speak to the table of contents as mentioned in the methods section of the narrative as compared to the required appendix? Is this a duplication? table of contents. Is this, I'm not quite sure what the questioner is referring to here. Mentioned in the methods section, is that for manuscript preparation? Does any of my colleagues know what this refers to?
Possibly the table of contents for the book in question.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Well, that's what I think the questioner is referring to. But the table of contents would be part of an appendix. I think you can just refer in your methods section to the appendix with the table of contents of your planned book. Could we propose a digital humanities project for a planning international collaboration grant? Yes, sure. But again, the planning international collaboration is really sort of early stage, and absolutely your eventual goal for this international collaboration could be a digital humanities project. And if you get the planning international collaboration grant, you could come back then when you're ready and apply for a scholarly digital projects grant in collaborative research. For DH, or digital humanities projects, should we have a national advisory board in place as part of the peer review plan? If you think that's the best way to conduct peer review for your project, then by all means, you can put together such an advisory group. It's not a specific requirement. There are different ways to have peer review conducted, but that's certainly one of the possibilities. For scholarly digital projects, can collaborators be a humanities expert and a digital librarian, or do collaborators have to be two expert specialists? So no, that's exactly what I was trying to say. So it's the former. Collaborators can be a humanities expert and a digital librarian. That's exactly the kind of possible collaboration we envisioned for this category. Could be a larger group too. It could be several humanities scholars and a variety of librarians, digital librarians, and technology experts who are working together, right? And then I have here for the drafts, I think perhaps this person is referring to the email for the drafts. That would be collaborative@neh.gov, and you will find all the information you need in the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, about how to submit drafts. See, where are we with time? I think we still have a few more minutes. For the 2-year conference funding leading to publication of the proceedings, at what stage is it necessary or recommended to define a table of contents / list of participants? Yes, I realize that is sometimes a bit in flux this early in the process of planning for a conference that is likely to happen a year later. We would generally, successful conference proposals are able to tell the readers who the presenters are at a conference and that they have agreed to participate in the conference, and in the case of your question, to publishing the papers or the proceedings of the conference. I would, is it necessary? It's definitely recommended. The more information you can give about a table of contents for a publication of the proceedings, so much the better. But you know, don't overpromise either. Just tell us where you are. However, I would say it's more important to know who's participating and that they have agreed to do so. Judy, I sort of want to give you a chance to say something too. Do you have anything to add perhaps to the conference idea?
No, I mean, I think just to reiterate that there's not a sort of hard and fast rule about how many participants you have to have lined up and how firm the commitment has to be, but that the peer reviewers obviously will be responding more positively to a more kind of specific and hammered out kind of plan. And if it's kind of too vague, those applications don't tend to do as well.
Yeah.
And I might just pipe up too about the earlier question about archival research and oral history, just to reiterate that some oral history projects really are more ethnographic and might be more suitable for that other grant program that Lydia mentioned. But other oral history projects are not really ethnography. It's really another sort of method of historical research. And so you can certainly apply to this collaborative program with that kind of a mixed method approach to a historical topic. So yeah,
Thanks, Judy.
those are the two things that come to mind.
Right. Good comments. Thank you. The next question here says, hello, my research focuses on cross-language study of bilingual spoken word recognition. The project is a psychological study which belongs to the social science field. Do you think I can still apply for your grant program of the manuscript preparation? So if it's really psychology and that and a social science project, the onus or the challenge is to you to make a case for why this study is valuable or advances humanities knowledge in some field. There are absolutely very interesting and funded crossover and interdisciplinary projects that we have funded in the past, but it's really your case to make. And if it is truly, spoken word recognition and a study of psychology, sort of just by the bit of information you've given here, I'm not sure that would be a good fit for a NEH, a humanities grant. But you could submit a draft and then we could give you some feedback on that.
And I'll just pipe up to add that the other thing you might do is run your proposal by some colleagues at your institution who are in a humanities department or two and see what they think. Does this strike them as humanities research, humanities methods and questions, or not? That's another approach.
Thank you, Judy. Yeah, that's great. The next questioner says, I'm interested in working with Indigenous groups, but know it takes time to establish relationships with these groups. Can one of the products of the Planning International Collaboration Grant include letters of collaboration? I don't see why not. If you think it makes strengthens your case. So basically, I would say yes if that supports your plan on what you're doing. Next question. I'm a professor at USC and am part of a collective that is made up of mostly UC professors. The collective is not a 501c3, so should I get DUNS from USC? So the short answer to all that is USC, so the University of Southern California, would be the applicant, right? And pay you for your project costs. So you don't need to get a separate DUNS number. The University of Southern California already has one, and when you work with their grants office, they can submit the application for you on the behalf of your collective. I'm pretty sure if they agree to sponsor you and your collective in that way. Next question, I'm working on a co-authored book and I need to have time with my 3 co-authors to write. We are thinking of at least 3 weeks together. The only possibility would be the Planning International Collaboration Grant, question mark. I don't quite understand, but are you saying you're going to write the entire co-authored book in 3 weeks? I don't think that's, if that's the case, I'm not sure it's the kind of project that would be appropriate for this grant proposal, this grant program. I'd advise you to look at the notice of funding opportunity in greater detail. And if you have specific questions, you can write to us about it or submit a draft. Next question, I have a number of supporting letters from partners and sponsors that were included in an earlier application. May I use them again in this year's applications, or do I need new ones? No, you can absolutely use them again in this application. And to all those listening who have submitted applications to this, or for that matter, any other NEH program previously, I strongly encourage you not to mention previous applications in your new application, because we don't tell reviewers that you've submitted before. Every application comes to us as a new application, and only NEH staff would know that you've applied before. So if you've been unsuccessful before, ask for the feedback from the reviewers of your application, revise your application accordingly, and then resubmit, and it will be considered as a new application. The next questioner says, I have submitted an application for another NEH grant that has not been awarded yet. It includes a collaborative component and conference/seminar organization. I don't know the result yet. Would it be advisable, and would I be eligible to apply for this one with a project that is very related, just in case I am not awarded the other grant? Yes, indeed. If you have another pending application, you are allowed to apply to any other NEH grant program. With other words, you can have concurrent pending applications. We have a few more minutes for questions. I'm not sure I'll get through all of the ones that have been submitted here, but I want to emphasize once more that you can write to us and ask specific questions, or as I said earlier, I encourage you to submit drafts for good feedback. But let me read a few more here. I run an open access digital peer-reviewed journal, and we are considering launching a digital monograph series. Would we need to have all of our authors selected or identified to submit a grant? So I'm not quite sure who the we is that is asking the question, but we would not support a monograph series. We support one monograph or one monograph at a time. So those people who are collaborating on publishing a single digital monograph could absolutely, and as long as the applicant is an eligible organization, they could absolutely apply for this project. But we wouldn't support a series. Next question is, I want to develop a hybrid high impact pedagogy for digital marketing and analytics for a digital marketing and analytics course for Clarion students in collaboration with a company based in London by continuous research for 2 to 4 semesters, where the company will provide expertise and tools. It will lead to publication and conference presentations. What is the best application category under NEH? There is so much packed into this question that I would suggest that you write us a separate email and submit a draft proposal for this. I'm not sure what you are outlining here falls strictly within the guidelines for our program. Please also look again at the details under funding restrictions about work that we do not fund in this grant program. Next question, if travel, etc., is held up, for instance, due to pandemic precautions, will it be possible to extend the time period funded? Yes, we are being as flexible as we can with award periods and extensions. So, you don't need to articulate necessarily a contingency plan in your application, but you should know that if you do get an award and circumstances have changed so that you, by the time you hear about an award, so that you have to change your work plan or start your project later, we can talk about that, and we'll try and work with you to figure out the best way for you to do your project. If we are not sure where a project fits under which NEH program, who is the best person to ask that question? Perhaps submit 2 sentences about the project and get quick guidance on that. Yeah, you can absolutely just send us an email. One of the people who's listed here on the questions slide. Or you can just send it to collaborative@neh.gov and we will route it to the best person to answer your question. I think I'll take just one more question here and then wrap up the session for today. In the category for scholarly digital projects, are there any expectations about the results by year? Could the final project be done by the end of the 3rd year, or do we need to show progress earlier? I think it's a smart strategy or a smart move to, in your program, in your work plan, which is part of your application, to set out milestones or goals that you will reach over, let's say, the 3-year period of a grant. That'll tell reviewers that you've planned things carefully and know exactly what you're going to do along each step of the way. I think I will end it here. I thank my colleagues for sitting in and participating. Those of you who have submitted questions that I didn't get to today, we'll try and email you, or you can email us with your questions and we'll answer them as promptly as we can. Thank you again, and once more, know that you will be able to listen to a recorded version of this webinar in just a few days. We have to do what we need to do to get it online, but it shouldn't take very long. So thank you and goodbye for today. We look forward to seeing your applications in December.